I would like to call the regular board meeting to order at 5:03. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let it be noted that all directors are present except for Director Roberts. And are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda tonight.
I'll move the agenda.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, motion passes. Ms. Williams, are there any members of the public here for public comment?
There's nobody for public comment in person. I have Ms. Mills. Do you have any comments?
I do not, thank you.
I also have a 909 number on here that ends in 5652. Do you have any comments? I guess we could proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to community reports. I think we have nobody here for that either. Is there anybody online?
Is anybody here for community reports? None that I can see.
Hearing none, we'll move on to consent items. Does anyone have any consent items they would like to pull? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent items?
I'll motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hearing none opposed, motion passes.
What's the one?
And there were no matters removed from the consent calendar. So we are on to presentations and appointments, meter replacement program. Is that
Hey,
Mr. Bartz?
Sean's going to present this.
Thank you, Mr. Bartz. Jen was kind enough to put together a PowerPoint presentation for our meter replacement program results, featuring an overview of the meter replacement program and the program metrics we used for the evaluation. In our initial meter testing program, how did we identify and know that there was a meter problem? So staff removed and bench tested 2% of the meter population to kind of give us a baseline analog, understanding how bad is it, what do we need to do. We reviewed the replacement rate due to the leaks over the lifespan, such as bottom seals. We determined it was in the best interest of the district, our customers, and in the interest of conservation that the district replace its meter population. If we remember back to, I guess it was Q3 of 2019, while we were doing the testing and evaluation, we began installing the new meters August 13th of 2020. And we initially took a phased approach, thinking we'd be replacing them into 24-25. And the board was kind enough, we went ahead and sped that program up in 2023 to remove all those failing meters onto our advanced metering infrastructure. What were the outcomes? The benefits that the district is seeing, there is no need to read meters monthly anymore. We have very robust, that's 100% success read rate. We have anywhere 5 to 10 or so a month. They didn't make an AMI meter without an umbilical or the little cord that attaches the meter to the antenna. So we're seeing 5 to 10, sometimes more, sometimes less. Critters will chew that wire, so we just splice them. I think we get a pack of 100 for $2, so they crimp on, much like the phone wire. We're able to generate daily that high consumption report, get that emailed out to us, our top 50 users. Really helps us evaluate where in the district are our top users, who are the top users. On-demand remote reads available to our office. Customers call in, we can ping that meter. If it hasn't phoned home, program to do that 4 times a day, try and help that battery out. But really that on-demand presence for the customer. And then nearly almost instantaneous customer side leak notification. So whereas where we used to be lagging up to about 30 days, we don't have that lag anymore, so we can really, the customer experience significantly improved, and the reduction of approximately 100 hours a month for meter maintenance, data verification, reading, and replacement. So really saving those staff hours. The benefits our customers are seeing is that demand remote reads available instantaneous to our office. That customer portal, which I hope everyone who's had the opportunity has signed up for it. It's much like your Edison portal, but even better because it's ours. Please sign up. You can set your own metrics for what you want to be notified. I have mine set up for 200 cubic or 2 HCF per day. That's completely customizable. Every customer has different needs, different uses, and that really gives us an arrow in our quiver to help our customers identify any leaks and quickly. And again, it's that nearly instant customer side leak notification via the text or email. Water loss over time. How have our meter changeouts impacted our overall water loss? We do monitor the water loss, sometimes too often. That unaccounted for water is determined by subtracting our consumption for production. This unaccounted for water typically results from a combination of factors, including leaks at customers' meters, leaks throughout our distribution system, metering inaccuracies, tank overflows, theft. So what we're really seeing, our district used to average 14.5 to 14.9%. It would fluctuate given year. This was compiled before this last month's data's come in. If we take an average of the year, we're at 11% flat today. That meter changeout program was completed March 24th, so we have a good 6 months of data to look back on. What we're seeing in that 6 months is 11% loss rate, so down 3.5, 3.9%. We're pumping about 3,000 acre foot a year. We're talking 90 acre feet per year. So significant for us. Residential water use over time, along with our decreased water loss, the district has also observed a reduction in residential water usage, due in part to a lot of that customer-facing experience. Our customers are notified more quickly, leaks on their side, no one wants to pay more because the meters are accurate, so those leaks are tidied up quicker. Our average residential gallons per capita per day, we're about 75 below 80. We are seeing a decrease in that trend. We'll have more data as the months and years tick by, but we are liking the trends we're seeing. We're moving in the correct direction. Happy to answer any questions on our slides up to number 10. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Wright?
Just a compliment that when mine went in, I didn't even notice it happened. I was very impressed with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll say it's a great program and congratulations on getting it completed and great job.
Thank you, and thank you to Jen for putting together the presentation.
Yeah,
She's
thank you.
excellent at the graphics.
With no further questions, we'll move on to item 6, continued new agenda items. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you. For item 6A, I'm going to pass this over to Lori, and this is going to be the district's annual audit.
And I'm going to introduce Mr. Chris Brown, our auditor, who's going to make a presentation to the board.
There we go. Thank you very much for having me. Once again, my name is Chris Brown, the audit partner. We'll go ahead and go over the results of the 2024 audit. Oh, okay, I can see it there. You do have it. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay. Kind of mixing things up just a little bit here.
We don't have, we don't have handouts of this, right, Amy? So can you get it on the other board or no?
Here we go.
Oh, thank you.
I can see it too.
There we go.
All right. I was going to ask if I could approach the screen there, but no, okay. So what comes out of the audit, of course, are a couple items. There's one being the management report, the other one being the financial statement, the ACFR, Annual Comprehensive Report. And I'd like to just kind of go over the management report. The management report is a required item of the auditor to address the board. It's a document that basically spells out, as you can see, a couple of bullet points here, our responsibility as an auditor under generally accepted accounting standards. It basically illustrates, or it enumerates the things that we're supposed to do, your responsibilities, and gives us an opportunity to point out any items that we think need to come to your attention. I'm happy to say, as you can see here, we encountered no difficulties in performing the audit. It went very well. Okay. Staff very responsive, and I thank them very much for that. There were no disagreements with management. Everything went there again very well. There was no differences of opinions. And the thing I really like to say is, there were no identified material weaknesses based on the results of our testing samples. So we did not come across any material weakness in your internal controls. So congratulations on that. If you haven't read it, I recommend that you take a look at the management report. It really spells out what the audit is. Okay? Go ahead and go to the next slide. There we go. Okay. Now getting back to the financial statement, within the financial statement is the auditor's opinion. You see at the bottom corner there it says page 16. That's within the actual financial statement itself. I have page 72 if you're going to try and follow it in the agenda package. But what we see here is a portion of the auditor's opinion. I think it's the second paragraph, and it's kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. And it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective governmental activities, the business type activities, and each major fund of the district as of June 30th, 2024. So again, congratulations on that. It's a clean opinion or unmodified opinion. Let's go ahead and go to, all right. Also within the financial statement is an award certificate, and it's on page 68 in the agenda package. It's on page 15 in the actual document, and it's the Government Finance Officers Association Award for 2023. So each year you've been submitting it to GFOA, and what they do with that is they send it out to an expert reviewer who goes through the document to make sure that it's in compliance with all the rules and regulations that have been established for that. It's a prestigious honor, and congratulations on that. What you see in the financial statement is the one for 2023. We expect that you'll submit this next ACFR to GFOA and receive the 2024 award that would be included in next year's award. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. There again, it's on page 68 if you were looking at the agenda package. Okay, there's a difference. There's a new item. What you received in your package, there was an amendment, an edit made to it. We came to the conclusion that actually an additional bit of information should be put into the notes. And what you see here is Government Accounting Standards Board Statement 104. Okay, and let me kind of explain what this is all about. This is just informational for the reader. It doesn't apply to the district this year. This is something that it's a new pronouncement that will be effective in future years. Basically, it's just put in there for the readers to understand, okay, what's coming along in the future? What kind of things might we have to comply with? This particular one here was added at the last minute. My technical reviewer said, hey, this really should be in there. So we contacted Lori, and she suggested that we put this into the presentation. So you'll see this in the final product.
You received a handout on this
Yeah.
page.
And really what this has to do with is capital assets and how they're classified in the financial statements. They're asking that leases be broken out into their own line item. And I'm being very, very high level on this, but it's, so like leases being broken out into their own line item, any assets that are being held for sale, that doesn't really apply to you guys. You don't buy properties to turn it, things like that. So this is really going to affect a few of our clients, and mostly for like the leases. You'll see this in the next financial statement, and then it will be put into effect, and it will be included towards the front of the notes to the financial statement saying that you've adopted that. So that's the story behind this right there. So if you really want to fall asleep, go to the GASB website and read the whole thing. Okay? I recommend that. That'll do it. Okay? That will do it. Holy moly. Okay. I'm going to cheat and look off my sheet here. Okay, so what we have here is the condensed statements of net position. So we'll just kind of go over a few numbers here. We did meet with Finance Committee last week, and we went through, thank you very much, we went through the financial statements at a much higher level, more detailed level, I should say. But what you see here is on page 76 of the agenda package, page 20 of the actual financial statement. This is the condensed statements of net position. It is essentially your assets, liabilities, net position, grouped by governmental and business type activities and by year. So we can see the change from year to year. This is a traditional presentation for your type of an entity. I've added that column all the way to the far right just to see what the change was. So the column all the way to the far right addresses the change in the two preceding columns for the whole district. And we can see from this that total assets increased approximately 2.9 million from the prior year. Moving down the statement, deferred outflows resources, that really has to do with pension obligations and such. These are amounts that are typically big picture allocated to your liability if there's a liability in the next year. Not much you can do about that number. It is what it is. There's an actuarial study that is done, and essentially what the district does is just puts those numbers into your financial statement. Okay. With regard to the liabilities, total liabilities went down approximately 1.021 million. Deferred inflows of resources, kind of the other side of the deferred outflows, these are amounts that kind of tend to add to a liability. Kind of a funny thing about that liability or asset, it's really dependent, or a real big driver is what the stock market does, or the market. I shouldn't just say stock market, because CalPERS, they invest in bonds and stocks and such. So what happens each year in that portfolio of investments really affects the liability. You can fund your pension plan, but what's really driving a lot of these changes from year to year, and they seem to kind of oscillate. It just seems like, it goes up one year, goes down another year, up and down, up and down. It really has an effect, and I'll point out an effect in the next slide. But anyway, the bottom section there is net position. That's kind of like your net. Go ahead and go back to that. No, that's fine. The bottom section is net position, and that's kind of like your net worth. It's broken out by what you've invested in your capital assets. So it's going to show what you've invested, less any depreciation, and less any debt that might be outstanding on it. So, and you can see that it changed. It went up approximately 248,000 from the prior year. Restricted net position is typically cash that's being held for a particular purpose, being payment of debt or being earmarked for capital improvement. Unrestricted is what's left over. I like to see an improvement or an increase in that line item from year to year, barring any unusual events or any new GASB pronouncements, because what happens every now and then when there's like a new pronouncement where, like when you put the pension liability on your books, it really affected that number, okay? So in the absence of that, seeing an improvement in that number is something I look for. So, and it did go up approximately 3.6. And let me tell you, the reason I pay attention to that is it tells me, kind of, and this is a really high-level big picture, it kind of tells me that management board, everybody involved in the budgeting process is really taking a look at revenues and matching it to expenses. And basically, when you see improvements, not always, but when there are improvements, it tends to be an indication that you have the ability to build certain reserves. Not always, but that's kind of an indication. So it's a healthy thing to see that improve from year to year. Okay. Well, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to have you go one slide further, and then we're going to back up to this. Okay. What we have here is the condensed statements of activities. This is kind of like a profit and loss statement, except exactly like the previous statement, governmental activities, business type activities by year. And we can see, if we look at the very lowest far right column, last line, it says 3,953,106. That there is your change in net position, or it's kind of like your net income. Okay, it's not cash, but it's net income. It's your revenues less your expenses. Now I'm going to go ahead and have you go back. Yes, there we go. So this is a narrative that explains the big picture. It's not the nitty-gritty, every single account, you know, things are grouped together. There might be 50 accounts within a particular line item in a financial statement. Some go up, some go down. There are a million different reasons that can happen. This is big picture. But essentially, the net position increased by approximately 7% to that 3.9 million to 59,086,417 as a result of ongoing operations. So just basically the activities of the district during the year. Total revenues, and that's business type and government type activities, increased 1,534,000 to that 14.2 million. So that's total revenues. And they are made up of your program revenues, basically what you do for a living, the services you provide. And general revenues are going to be things like taxes, interest, income, things like that. But we can see the program revenues increased by 1.25 million due primarily increases in monthly meter service charges, water consumption sales, other charges for services, capacity fees, and other income from the solid waste fund. Jeff Palmer, who is the auditor, is supervisor on this engagement, I kind of stole some of the language that was included in some of his analysis. So, you know, he pointed out that the solid waste fund sourcing from SB 1383 Cal Recycle grant was received. With regard to general revenues, again, things like interest and such, it increased 283,000 due primarily to increases in property taxes, interest earnings, gain on disposal of assets, which were offset by a decrease in other income as compared to the prior year. With regard to the expenses, would you guys like to see the other table, or are we okay continuing? Would you like to see the numbers on the screen, or? You're good. Okay, you're good. I just don't want to confuse the issue here. Okay, so total expenses decreased by 806,000 to 10,301,000. Here again, the big things that really affected it was really on the water fund side. Expenses decreased from the prior year by 854,915. Amongst that, your general and administrative section decreased 459,000 from the prior year. What's included in that, there again, we were talking about all the different things that go into a particular area. There was an adjustment to the CalPERS pension, okay? So basically, it included a $624,000 adjustment to your expense, decreased it from the prior year. Okay? So that's what I was talking about. We're seeing these things oscillate back and forth. With regard to transmission and distribution, it decreased $452,000, primarily due to lower repair and maintenance costs in the current year as compared to the prior year. With regard to the governmental funds, it increased approximately $48,000, with the general fund increasing approximately $28,000, parks and recreation decreasing $22,000, street lighting decreasing $5,000, solid waste increasing $29,000, and a loss on disposal of assets was $18,000. So in aggregate, all that activity came into play, and your final result was a change in net position of $3,953,106. So kind of, wrapping things up. Sorry I was late. Traffic was terrible. I'm glad I made it. I was getting kind of worried. I was about ready to make a phone call. The audit went very well. There again, everybody was very responsive. We were able to provide you with a clean opinion, no material weaknesses noticed, and positive results for the year. And that is my presentation. I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Brown? No? I just want to say thanks for spending a couple hours with Director Roberts and I last week going over the CAFR, and then congratulations to staff on the Government Financial Officers Association Certificate of Excellence, being able to apply for that and hopefully get it. And then, are you done, or do we?
Yeah. Yes.
It's for the board to accept
Yes.
the report.
I know, I didn't want to jump in there and cut her off. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Brown or Lori?
No. Thank you. Nice presentation. Good job to staff.
Thank you for making the drive here.
I like coming out. I really do. I like it.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll move the item.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 6B, which is discussion and possible action regarding district health benefits contribution increase for employees. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you, President Hayes. As we were going through the open enrollment this year and getting up into the healthcare benefits for the year, we realized there are substantial increases that we've seen this year and actually almost every year. So what I wanted to do is come in and see if the board would be interested in upping the amount the district pays towards the employees' health care. We did run this by the ad hoc committee with Greg and Chuck. We discussed this earlier, and so I'd like to present this to the board tonight. If you look at the chart on page 167, and the amount the board pays towards the health insurance for the employees has been tied to the COLA. The CPI is tied to the COLA for the past few years. Most years it's anywhere from 2%, 2.9, 2.2. The last couple of years we had 8.6 and 8.9, and again this year for 2025 was 2.8, so it's dropped back down. The next column over, column C, is what the actual increase is in the healthcare. In reviewing some of the notes from the meetings, I believe in 2021. It was to be brought back to the board to tie the district's contribution to the actual increase in the cost of the insurance, which is quite substantial. And you can see the difference between the column B and column C. The last 4 years we've had 7.12, 7.34, 9.82, and 9.8%. So what that translates to when you look at the average employee, it can be, if somebody were kind of a lower to mid-range employee at the district, it could be up to about 16% of the gross income of their paycheck going to covering health insurance for if they have a family. And you can see the costs under G, which if you want the average HMO family plan, it's over $2,600 a month now, almost $2,700 a month. It just keeps going up every year. So what we proposed to the committee and to the board, and the board came back with a number of $250. Basically, it's a $250 average per employee across the board to help make up for that. We found that with that number, a lot of the people that have smaller families will not have any contribution. And as it gets, you get to 2 or 3 kids, depending on the plan they pick, it does get quite expensive. You're again paying hundreds of dollars a month. Under the way that it was before, under column I, 2025, an employee would be paying $1,000 a month out of their pocket for the health care, on top of what the district contributes to that. So we would like to propose that the district look at increasing that for this year. The cost for this year up through June 30th is about $40,500 and $81,000 for the year. What we would like to do is, as we get into the budget season, which will be in January, we're going to be starting the budget again, to look at that and have more time to look at the health care plans that we have available. We do not have a traditional health care plan like we did in the past. Excuse me. We went to a more, I don't want to say a cafeteria plan, but they could pick and choose the plan where they had lower lower payments and higher co-payments. And it basically comes into small districts. Districts are employers of under 100 people. We're going to look at getting back into a pooled plan for next year, so it evens it out across the board. But we figured this would get us up through the end of the year and help the employees greatly. Excuse me. So it's a lot of information, a lot of numbers. But if the board would be open to considering this, I would present this to the board for their approval.
Questions for Mr. Bartz? Okay. Do we have a motion on the item?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Oh, I thought he said I second. I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, none opposed, motion passes.
Thank you, and I know staff appreciates this. This is a pretty heavy lift for everybody, the district and for the employees.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention and letting us go over it and sharing all the facts with us and spending the time.
Thank you, and this is timely because they have till Monday to choose their open enrollment plan.
Right.
So people have been holding off to kind of see where we're at, and this will help greatly.
We'll move on to 6C, discussion and possible action regarding the purchase and installation of meter main section, transfer switch, and distribution section switchboard for Site 1C operations facility for fiscal year 25-26. Mr. Bartz.
I'm going to push this over to Sean Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Bartz. If this item looks familiar, I believe 1 or 2 months ago we had one very similar. What we're seeing is the lead times are anywhere from 35 to 52 weeks. We do have multiple booster stations that were constructed in the 70s and 80s, and we're finding that, quite frankly, the electrical equipment, we're having to source components on eBay. Many of these components aren't manufactured anymore. They're obsolete. This summer we blew apart 2 of the main disconnects. Both of those we are proposing to replace. If we remember back a month or 2 ago, when we asked the board to consider the first meter main section, that was step 1 for this fiscal. Knowing we have a 35 to 52 week lead time, staff is asking that we begin purchasing and at least ordering so it will arrive in time for next fiscal year. We don't pay for the material until it arrives, so that way we're staying kind of on track with our 10-year CIP. With that being said, and we have our auditor here, the purchasing policy was followed. We solicited for bids. We did receive 4 bids back. In fact, we had one that declined to bid because their lead times, they couldn't get it. So staff recommends for the board to authorize the purchase and installation of a meter main section, transfer switch, and distribution section switchboard for Site 1C from Consolidated Electrical Distributors for the amount not to exceed $85,643. And again, this would be for our fiscal year 25-26. We're just kind of forward-looking, so we have those materials to do, seeing they can be up to a year out. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Wright?
Thank you. And Sean, on our sites, do we, as far as preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance, do we do any IR picture taking, infrared, to see if our panels are showing any signs of stress or overheating due to their age?
We do. So we have staff that's been trained in arc flash. We do have FLIR. We do utilize it. We try and look for hot spots. What we're finding is a lot of our panels, especially meter mains, they're old. So we're sourcing those components on eBay. We're getting them where we can. Our motor control centers also exhibiting much of the same. In our budget, it's identified in here, it's line 10 in our 10-year CIP. Staff currently budgets $135,000 for these upgrades, and if we purchase, from experience, these components are very, very expensive. So we were hoping initially that 135 would encapsulate both the meter main sections and the motor control centers for a site a year. Quite frankly, it's not even close. We're in excess of $400,000 for some of these sites for both those components. So staff's doing the best we can. It's nice to hear that some of our, efforts are paying off in reduced costs. So we're trying to live within our means. So we're starting with the meter main sections and transfer switches. That's the most current need because that's what we blew apart twice this year. And in the coming fiscal years, we're going to be replacing those motor control centers at those sites as well.
All right, and that's identified in our capital replacement plan?
Yes, sir. And line 10.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
By making the order now, does that lock in the price at that price for good?
It does.
So it stops the thing saying it may increase?
Well,
Oh,
no vendor is going to guarantee a price a year out.
okay.
So many vendors won't even guarantee a price for 30 days. It's hard to get a vendor to guarantee a price for a week. So they do have built-in escalators. We are at their mercy. There's a chance it could go up. There is a chance it can go up.
Okay, so be prepared, it might go up.
Yeah.
The chances are it might not. We don't know yet.
I don't see a significant increase. Many materials are starting to cool off. We're seeing availability happening again, especially on brass fire hydrants. But 10 years ago, a fire hydrant was $750, and today that same hydrant is $7,000. So we are doing the best we can to balance those costs, but it would be advantageous to the district to lock that order in now to guarantee it. Well, and again, there's no guarantee on the 35 to 52-week lead time. That is why we are asking for the board's permission to order that this evening, so it's available in fiscal year 25, 26, so we can do it at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah, even if we waited to place the order then, and we still had to wait or it was available, you're going to be paying the same price. We just need to hold them accountable and make sure that it's fair.
Any more questions for Mr. Wright? No? That being said, I'll move the item. Motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Not hearing none opposed, motion passes.
Thank you.
6D is a request to release notice of bidders for Phelan Park Enhancement Project.
George, go ahead and take this one.
Thank you, Mr. Bartz. A little background on our project and where we're at in the whole process of getting this approved. The county has completed an initial review of the project. The district staff and consultants are in the process of addressing those comments. We anticipate to submit those plans tomorrow. There was a little delay, coordination between the Civic Center project and the park project. So we're looking at the 14th, tomorrow. We anticipate minimal further revisions to the project plans arising out of the county's whatever that word is, review. Consequently, staff proposes releasing the notice as soon as county has issued final approval. This strategy will allow us to maintain momentum and meet grant obligation deadlines. We have 2 grants on this project. One is the ARPA project, or the ARPA grant, for $750,000. This grant is what kind of set us in that mode to bring it to the board for approval because of the obligations, the grant obligations for this project, or for this funding. Also included is the per capita grant of $177,000. The project, we got 2 pickleball courts, a community teaching garden, ADA compliance upgrades, 2 outdoor fitness stations, and revised interest driveway ramp and parking lot improvements, and of course the landscape plan with irrigations. These additions reflect our mission to provide accessible recreational space that enhances the quality of life for our residents. The project status, district anticipates a quick approval of the following. The second submittal. Meanwhile, legal counsel is reviewing the bid documents to ensure compliance and readiness. In light of the grant requirements and anticipated minor adjustments from the county, we request that the board authorize release of the notice for the Phelan Park Enhancement Project, contingent upon receiving the final project plans and approval from legal counsel and the general manager. This proactive step will allow the district to stay on schedule and meet grant funding requirements. The recommendation to award the project will be brought back to the board at the end of the bidding process. Wanted to add, we requested the county or ARPA granting fund to provide us a 3-month extension on this. We were required to have this project awarded or issued a PO by December 31st, so we have until March 31st. This will allow us to have enough time or leeway if the initial bids came back with a challenge and we can rebid this project, or not enough bidders, that we can meet that March 31st deadline. We are anticipating to get this out probably the first week of December. We're going through the local paper, the Mountaineer Progress, Daily Press, The Sun, and Planet Bids. And then we'll be bringing this back to the board for recommendation to award probably in January. So we don't anticipate any additional comments from the county. We kind of went through the bulk of comments on the first round. They're really working with the district in providing those comments back to the district. The first submittal took us about a week. We don't anticipate this to be any further than that, another week. So with that, any questions I can try to answer. We also have Kennedy on the line if we want to get into the bid packet.
Any questions for Mr. Cardenas?
George, what is the source of the funding for the 50218 amount?
The 50218, Jan has been kind of working on the grant funding. The 50218,
Is it the 2 grants together?
2 grants?
oh, it is combined.
Okay.
Yes.
So the source of the funding, or the 500, the match, that's coming out of some grants you already received towards this project?
So the 547, which is the equal match requirements,
Yeah.
and then the 177 combined, that's the grant. So that's the fiscal impact of 502, somewhere around. But the estimated project cost is about 1.4 million.
Right, yeah. I just was, maybe I didn't phrase my question right. I was just asking, where's the source of funding for our match? Is that
Our
coming out of
match.
coming out of the Parks General Fund? Is that
Out of
coming
reserves for the parks.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
That's
it.
all I need to know.
That's it.
Sorry, I confused you.
Yeah, I was looking for some section 103 or something.
Any other questions for Mr. Cardenas? So, George, I have one question. The obligation of the fund, so did they authorize that, or are we waiting for authorization
It has been
for the
authorized.
extension? It has been authorized.
Yes, the request was put in, it was put on their agenda, and it was approved. So it has been authorized.
And then the per capita grant, that's a grant we get every year, correct?
The per capita grant is part of the, no, it isn't, it's part of the, I think Jan can really dive into the details of that.
Yeah, that was a grant that was initially applied for a few years ago for purchase of the property, but they've allowed us to convert it to actually pay for the costs in the park.
Do we get any grants at all for parks per capita every year? Is there an annual?
No, this
No.
was just a one-off.
Yes.
No, one of the things that we're going to be looking at too is maybe a lobbyist to get some of the park grants. There's a lot of park grants available, and we've been approached, so that'll be on a future agenda. I'd like to talk to the board about that.
Okay.
Yeah, what I included in the attachments is a kind of general layout of the park site, but what is not shown in the rendering is the driveway approach and the ADA compliance of the park entrance. So it's quite extensive as far as pathways and expansions and driveway improvements. So initially, that was part of the project back in 2018, was to do the parking lot rehabilitation, which we put on pause because of the expansion of the Piñon Hills or Phelan Park expansion project.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Cardenas? No? With that, do we have a motion?
I motion to approve the release of notice to bidders.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. And we will move on to item E, update on district projects. Mr. Bartz.
George is going to take that item also.
Yes. Civic Center project, county plan check, they're reviewing the revised grading plans, the building plans, and the revised WQMP per FEMA. It's been in for a bit now. It's already been kind of approved. It's just the FEMA modifications that were addressed. Also, FEMA and Callaway has formally noticed the district to move forward on the project. So that $2 million has been set aside for this, for the EOC. Any questions on the Civic Center? I can jump on to the Phelan Park expansion.
Questions? No.
The notice of public hearing for the adoption of the mitigated negative declaration with San Bernardino County Planning Commission is set for November 21st. And that's part of the CEQA process. That's on the 14-acre project. So we'll be down there to kind of represent the project if there's any questions, along with Steno Design staff. I have nothing more to report on the park.
Okay. With that, we will move on to committee reports and comments. Engineering Committee.
We did not meet.
And Finance Committee, we met last week and went over the annual financial plan with Mr. Brown, so thank you for that. Legislative Committee.
We did not meet
Next month.
next month, yeah.
And then Parks, Recreation, and Street Lighting Committee.
We did not meet, but we are on track for an amazing Christmas tree lighting on Friday, December 6th.
Nice.
Hot cocoa, lots of singing, and a visit from the big guy.
Perfect. And then Waste and Recycling Committee.
We meet next week.
We do. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 8, Staff and General Managers Report. Are there any staff reports beyond what's in the agenda materials?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Do any board members have any questions or comments on that item? Move on to Directors Reports. Director Kuyava.
Nothing to report.
Director Snyder,
I have nothing to report.
Director Phillips,
Nothing to report.
and Director Hayes, nothing to report. So move on to correspondence and information. Ms. Williams, will you please review the correspondence?
We have our flyers that go out in the bills and we provide in the office. We have the 811 flyer for Call Before You Dig. How to winterize your swamp coolers. We could prepare for the wintertime. We have the flyer for the 4th annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony for December 6th at 5:30. Christmas painting class on December 7th and a kids baking class on December 14th.
Thank you. And review action items. Were there any prior meeting action items?
I don't see any prior meeting items.
Okay. And then current meeting action items?
I have none noted.
Okay. Set agenda for the next meeting. Do any members of the board have any items you would like to add to the agenda?
Are we sure we're going
Yeah,
to
I
meet the
think-
day before Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I think staff's recommendation would be that we cancel that meeting.
Okay, I'm good with that.
We agree.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Consensus.
And we will now recess to closed session at 5:54.